All right, hi everybody. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. It's actually my first summit, so I'm really happy to be here. And give yourselves props for showing up today. This is really amazing. And real quick, if you don't mind, could we give a round of applause to our amazing language interpreters? Like, that's amazing. Yes. Awesome. All right. So we've been talking a lot about representation at this summit, so I wanted to quickly add my story to the mix. I am a student from Idaho. I'll give you all a second for the shock to wear off. Yes, I'm from Idaho. I was a 12-year-old, and I was a really ambitious 12-year-old. I had a list of 20 things I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was going to do all of them. I was going to be a secretary, a firefighter, and a U.S. Marshal. But I didn't have science and engineering in that list. That's because there wasn't someone in my community that represented that to me. I was also homeschooled. And my mom had a lesson one day, and we learned about Sally Ride, who was the first female astronaut for NASA. Later, for Black History Month, I'm sure, I learned about Mae Jemison, who was the first Black female astronaut for NASA. Yeah, she's awesome. She's badass. So the reason why that's significant is because it wasn't until I saw Mae Jemison that I said, I want to be an astronaut. And to be an astronaut, you have to be, I learned, you have to be a scientist, an engineer, or a doctor. So that's when I decided, yes, I want to be an engineer. And my mom gave me the gift of self-activation because she didn't know anything about being an engineer. So she said, what are you going to do to make sure that you're ready for college to become an engineer? So that was really important. So I was able to do that. And then it just impressed upon me the idea that, we have cultural bias in our world today to learn about these things. So, for example, if you have in your technology a blind spot, right, and you're not serving your community right, that creates a blind spot. If you have a blind spot and you have a lack of representation, that creates a basis for cultural bias. So that's what I want to talk about today, and that's kind of where I came from. So I was an intern at a different tech company, learning about working on research and robotics, and I asked myself the question, where does AI exist in our lives? Oops, we were already on that slide. Okay, where does AI exist in our lives? And so when we put down our phones and we're not using the Facebook algorithms, we're not using Google search, we're still interacting with AI pretty regularly. It's in our traffic lights, it's in our air traffic control towers, it's in our ATMs, it's in our MRI and CAT scans. So it's really important to understand that we're still on a minute-by-minute interaction with AI even when we're not using our phones. So with that, I want to go through a few examples of where we've seen AI mess up and what we've done to do about that. So first up is sexism. Word2Vec is a data set that helps train search engine models and understanding word relationships in those search engine models. A lot of researchers use it. It's really powerful and robust. However, other researchers looked at it and found out that it had an implicit sexist bias. So I'm going to give you two examples of questions they asked it, and I want you to read it off the screen with me. Father is to doctor as mother is to nurse. Man is to computer programmer as woman is to homemaker. That's a problem, right? And this addresses the first question I get, which is, why can't we use the internet to fix the problem and make our algorithms diverse? Well, it's because we are inherently sexist in how we react and talk about each other online. So that's the first problem. And you can feel free to go and look up this article and get even more in-depth knowledge of it. I totally suggest you do. So the next problem I want to talk about is racial bias. Joy Blalomini is an amazing researcher, amazing. If you want to learn more about cultural bias in AI, look up her website, look up her TED Talk. She was working with social robots that uses computer vision, and computer vision is often used to look at your facial expressions and make empathetic judgments off of that. And she found that she wasn't able to continue her research until she put on a white mask because it could not detect her face. Yeah, horrible. Totally look up the story. And then further on, it's an infamous example of how two people were using a Google product, and they are categorized as gorillas on the Google product. Now, here's something to bring to mind. The algorithms don't have to be inherently racist or sexist. But we do know now that if you have a limited data set, you're going to get a limited search result. So that's important to think about. All right, next example is Tay. So Tay, here's some remarks. So Tay is a Twitter bot that was put up for Microsoft. It was a way for people to engage with artificial intelligence freely. They could talk to it and respond. But they found out very quickly that it was easy to manipulate and set the tone of what the bot would respond to and say just based on a few conversations with some Twitter followers. So that talks about how we use our algorithms can have serious consequences for our personal knowledge. You know, today we are like engulfed in this conversation about the politics, about filter bubbles, about Facebook algorithms and fake news. And also there's a conversation about even the miseducation of Dylan Roof, who used search results on black on white crime, white on black crime, to make his misjudgment about why he did the crimes that he committed. So, Eli Pariser, another really great TED Talk to watch, talks about this idea of filter bubbles. When you do a search result, you can get something completely different if you did the same search result in a completely different place, maybe 500 miles away. It doesn't matter. Google uses, and many other algorithms like Facebook uses parameters, right? Based on where you are, where you live, what you've searched for before, and a few other things to help get you the results that you want to see. So, what could we do to have transparency to know why we see what we see? That's what I'm going to talk about in a second. So why is it this way? We're at this amazing summit. We have conversations all the time about the fact that, you know, our workforce is not as diverse as we want to be. So we know that, you know, who develops the technology needs to change. But also who uses the technology is important. It wasn't until that couple said, hey, y'all misidentified us, that they were able to address that problem and address it publicly. So we also need to be careful and bring in more diverse people to use our technology and be our testers so we can identify these problems. All right, so how do we make it better? 3 points. Responsibility, people need to know, yes, you're not gonna fix it right away. There will still be errors, but you need to own up to it when you do make those mistakes. Transparency, right? How did your algorithm make the choice? Why did it make the choice? I'm gonna drill down into that. And accountability. We need to bring people to task, saying this was a problem, did you fix it, and how did you fix it? We need to bring them accountable. It's really important that we provide input and get input, especially from identities that are not our own. It's really important. All right, so Explainable AI is about the transparency part. I'm really excited about that. DARPA and Optimizing Mind are two entities that are working on projects like these. I'm gonna walk you through an example that I've kind of come up with to help me understand Explainable AI. So say you have a computer vision algorithm and you're trying to identify a speed limit sign. Speed limit sign has these characteristics that an algorithm might identify. A border, the word speed, the block font, and so forth. Then it makes a decision. This is a speed sign or this is not a speed sign. And then we ascribe an accuracy to that. The two middle columns in this picture are what's important. What decision did you make? How did you make that decision? That's what's gonna help us understand those choices. And can you imagine being on your Facebook feed and seeing something and then be able to drill down and say, oh, why did you bring this up into my feed? Where did this come from? I think that would be a pretty amazing tool. All right, so we need more organizations. Another shout out to Joy Blamini. Her website, Algorithmic Justice League, also tackles different problems across the board about cultural bias in AI. And also, you're at this summit. Write about this. Be the part of the change of the searches and results that we see when we talk about things. Make sure you write it down so that it's long-standing, available to everyone. I use women of color in tech stock photos all the time. Another way to change what we see when we search. And more. Just keep talking about hidden figures. Keep talking about badass Princess Cherie. Yes, amazing, amazing, Wakanda forever. Dr. Jetta Ida Eisler is another amazing badass woman of color. She was the first astrophysics PED black woman to achieve an astrophysics PhD from Yale. She's amazing herself, learn about her, but she also has an amazing TED Talk as well called the Untapped Genius. Now, if you have your phones, feel free to take them out right now. I'm gonna tell you something, a really good Googleable term, 200 women of color in tech. I put together a list of 200 women of color in tech to find on Twitter. So if you need to infuse your Twitter feed, after this amazing summit, feel free to go ahead and grab that. And there are lists like those coming out all the time. So we need more of those. And thank you.
All good for me.